As your kids get older, talk to them. But more importantly, listen to them. Encourage them to express themselves. The more that you communicate, the stronger your bond is going to be. Again, whether that's with your partner or with your children. And so if communication is something that you perhaps need to work on, I'd urge you address it sooner rather than later. Because more often than not, the root of a lot of problems when it comes to parenting or growing your family is poor communication. Thank you for tuning in to the Mile 40 podcast. I am Bishoy Tadros, the author of Break Barriers and Audacious, both of which are sold on Amazon. And I invite you to join me as I engage with guests to discuss those bounce back moments that we encounter on our personal journey. Mile 40 is a forum to learn about how athletes, professionals, and leaders of all backgrounds stare down moments in life where the only option is to rise up. The Mile 40 podcast strives to remind listeners that the comeback is always greater than the setback. Welcome back to another episode of the Mile 40 podcast. I'm sure you could tell that things are a little bit different already for this episode. If you are watching on Spotify or YouTube, if you've been following me along on social media, you know that my wife and I just welcomed our second baby girl last week. So it's been a whirlwind in the most beautiful of ways. And so I'm going to do things a little bit differently this week. First and foremost, thank you for continuing to tune in, to join me on this adventure of building this show. It's crazy how things have just evolved on their own. And that goes for everything. That goes not just for this show, but really just life in general. There's so many elements to how my life has played out that some of which I could say I perhaps manifested, and others of which I could have never imagined in the greatest of ways. So before we dive into today's episode, like I said, we're going to do things a little bit differently today. If you haven't already, please be sure to hit subscribe if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you like to get your podcast from. Check out the show notes. If you haven't already, go pick up a copy of Break Barriers or Audacious. There's a discount code in the show notes. For today's episode, what I'm thinking of doing is I think I'm going to share with you all 20 of the most important lessons I've learned through being a father. I am now a dad of 2 girls. It's definitely the title that I'm most proud of. It's definitely my greatest I don't know that accomplishment is the right word, but it's crazy, the overwhelming sense of duty, responsibility, devotion, love, that really comes about the minute you see them for the very first time. And so for today's episode, I want to point out that these lessons have not only shaped me as a parent, but they've also deepened my understanding of life's journey. These lessons are not just for fathers or parents. They're for anyone navigating life's ups and downs, trying to make sense of the chaos and really looking for the beauty in the struggle. I always say, embrace the struggle, embrace failure. If you develop this mindset where you welcome adversity, you are just so prepared for anything life has to throw your way. And no doubt about it, parenthood is chaotic. But I feel, very prepared just because of the fact that I've experienced adversity at various points in my life. And when there was no, disruption and things were kind of moving along, I would go out there and seek it out myself. So let me start off with lesson number 1. Lesson number 1 is embrace the uncertainty. Fatherhood, like life, is just full of uncertainties. The moment you think you've got it figured out, everything changes. The key, just embrace it. Find comfort in the unknown. It's in these moments of doubt that we often discover our greatest strengths, right? That kind of plays into what I was saying. If you put yourself in uncomfortable situations, you start to unleash potential. And the truth of the matter is with parenting is There is no instruction manual. There is no right or wrong way to many of the things because every child is unique. And so if you can accept that and you can embrace it, you are going to equip yourself much better than someone who's going to be rattled every time something doesn't go the way that you expect. You just can't control everything. And so, lesson number one, embrace the uncertainty. Lesson number two, patience is a superpower. Now, if you read Break Barriers and if you listen to any one of my speaking engagements or attending an engagement that I've ever led, you know that I talk about three tenors: patience, perspective, and purpose. And the truth is, patience is always the number one. And the reason for that is because it transcends a lot of the, day to day. The one true element when it comes to anything we want to accomplish, whether it's with ourselves, whether it's with those, that count on us, it's that you won't always get the results you want when you want them. And if there's one thing that parenting teaches you, it's that. Whether it's calming a crying baby, waiting for your toddler to tie their shoes, patience is essential. And it's not just about waiting, it's about how you wait. It's about maintaining that composure, keeping perspective, even when everything around you feels super chaotic. So there's a reason, like I said, that patience is the first tenor. It's because it goes well beyond the day to day. If you can be patient, you can see through to almost anything that you want. But again, it's about how you go about being patient. Lesson number three, presence over perfection. It's easy to get caught up in trying to be the perfect parent. But what your kids really need is presence. They need you to be there, engaged, not distracted. Perfection is an illusion. And the truth of the matter is, this is something that I struggle with. Building this platform, growing this podcast, selling these books, working a job, training for marathons. I'll get into this later on this episode. There's no world where I'm going to eliminate those items from my life. But, as a result of those items, a lot of times, quite frankly, and my wife calls me out on this, I find myself on my phone a lot. And so, you know, keeping this in mind, it's something that I'm going to be working on and something that I encourage you all to pay special attention to, especially with this day and age. It's really hard for a lot of us not to remain connected all the time. But the truth of the matter is, your kids notice, and your presence is a gift. So don't take it away from them. And like I said, I'm just as guilty as anyone else, and this is something that I'll be working on. Lesson number 4: let go of control. As a father, I've learned that I can't control everything. Kids have their own personalities, their own quirks. My daughter loves the word no. Letting go of control allows them to grow into who they're meant to be. It allows you to enjoy the journey rather than constantly trying to direct it. I'm telling you all, if you try to direct it, it's never going to work. A personal take on this is, I've really been leaning into gut health and the importance of, making sure that we are offering our children and our family the most nutritious kinds of meals in order for them to grow, to develop. And also, I'm trying to break the generational curse of the types of snacks that were perhaps in our households growing up. And a lot of that isn't necessarily because, our parents tried to poison us with processed foods. It's more so because, our parents were figuring it out. And back then, a lot of the things that, we'd all never touch now were the norm. And so I'm trying my best to learn ways to promote good behavior in my household. One of the things that, I learned listening to a podcast earlier this week was around how to speak regarding your food relationships. And it's really important when you're around not young kids not to refer to foods as rewards or treats. You don't want to associate behaviors with dessert, for instance, or with something that's unhealthy for you. What you want to do is you want to set the example by showing them what you eat. You don't necessarily want to yell at them or scold at them for eating something that you wouldn't eat, but you want them to be able to make their own decisions and guide them along the way. And so it's definitely a delicate balance, but letting go of control is definitely an important lesson when it comes to parenthood. Lesson number 5. And this lesson, we talked about it in Audacious, the power of vulnerability. Fatherhood has taught me the strength in vulnerability. It's okay not to have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. It's overwhelming at times. I share those feelings with my wife whenever I feel like there are certain things happening that, quite frankly, I have no idea where they're going to lead to. There's a lot of reasons that you can stress yourself out when it comes to growing your family for just for a variety of things that are unpredictable. The finances are wildly unpredictable. You think you have everything under control, and then boom, a bill you never expected comes along for something you never thought you'd have to pay for. And so being vulnerable about those things allows you to a accept the fact that you're human. It allows you to build stronger connections, in this case with my wife, and it allows you to take the first step toward making a plan and taking action. Lesson number 6: growth comes from challenges. Every challenge in fatherhood, from temper tantrums to sleepless nights, to friction with your partner, is really an opportunity for growth. These moments test your patience, your resilience, your ability to adapt, but they also teach you the valuable lessons about yourself and, quite frankly, what truly matters. I'll say that, one of the things that has been apparent ever since I became a dad was, if it doesn't matter, it's not happening. Like, on a personal note, my circle has gotten ever so small. The places I go to and the things I do have shrunk because time is of the essence. And so if it doesn't matter, it's not happening. And we'll delve into the things that matter. Lesson number 7: love is a verb. It's not just a feeling, it's an action. It's stepping up when your partner needs it. It's learning how to do things that, will help pick up the slack. For instance, my daughter Elena and I, she's 2 and 3 months. For the last 5-6 months, I've been in charge of bath time and putting her to bed. And, you know, while, you would think of those things as just being typical responsibilities as a parent, they are in a way, but they're also just my way of, telling my wife, like, hey, like, I got you. Like, I know you can't do everything, and I don't expect you to do everything. And I want you to know that I'm here to pick up the slack, so that way you can fill your cup. Speaking of filling your cup, lesson number 8: prioritize self-care. You can't pour from an empty cup. As a father, it's easy to put everyone else's needs before your own, but if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to take care of others. And to be honest, that's the same thing for mothers. It's nothing to do with either or. And so I take this really seriously. Some might say too seriously, but the truth of the matter is, I fill my cup whenever I go for my runs, whenever I'm getting my workouts in, whenever I have a couple of quiet moments to myself. I find myself a lot of times removing myself from social situations just to take a breath, just to step away, just to say, hey, like, recharge. And that's been huge for me. And I without prioritizing self-care, I don't know that I would be here today, even really giving you this episode, because self-care has allowed me to make it, one day to the next, and look back and think that what we're trying to do, while I don't know what the final outcome is going to be, is working. And it wouldn't work without self-care. Lesson number 9: celebrate the small wins. One thing I'm realizing, as this is my first solo episode, is you got to hydrate during these episodes. I don't know how other podcasters do it, go through a whole episode. without necessarily chugging water. But anyway, celebrating small wins. Lesson number 9. It's a long game. And sometimes the big milestones feel very far away, but it's the small wins, the first smile, the first word, the quiet moments of connection. Celebrate them. I think of every small win with Elena, my 2-year-old, and just the beauty in all those little milestones and how much happiness it gives you. Like I said, she says no a lot, but she started saying yes, and just hearing her say yes or give you an uh-huh and like nodding at you, like those things. I remember the first time she gave me a kiss on the cheek. I remember the first time that, she ran up and gave me a hug. I remember taking her to school for the first time she was on a swing, the first time she went down a slide, the first time she went swimming in a pool. And those milestones continue to build. And you have to celebrate every one of those wins along the way. Lesson number 10. Flexibility is key. Plans are going to change, routines are going to be disrupted, and things are not going to go as expected. Flexibility is absolutely essential as a father and as a parent. The ability to adapt and to go with the flow can make all the difference in how you experience life as a parent. This one is absolutely critical. The truth is, kids get sick all the time. You can never control that. If you're having your first child, expect the fact that there's going to be something that goes wrong. I remember Elena had a emergency trip to the ER shortly after she was born, and she actually suffered something called a febrile seizure in my hands. It was absolutely terrifying. It was late at night one night, and we knew nothing about it. We thought something was terribly wrong, and it turns out that febrile seizures, the word febrile is representative of the word fever, is common with young infants, and it's something that doctors and pediatricians are accustomed to treating when it happens. And what you really need to do is monitor how frequently it happens. Now, luckily for us, it only happened that one time, but the ability to adjust in moments of uncertainty is absolutely critical. Hey all, it's me, Bishoy. As a marathon runner and endurance athlete, I've come to understand the importance of properly fueling your body for preparation and recovery. Every day, you get a shot at success. How you start your day typically paints a picture of what the rest of the day will look like. Start your day with a super convenient, healthy, and delicious nutritional win. Meal 1 by Creatures of Habit. Overnight oatmeal packed with 30 grams of plant-based protein, chia, flax, and pumpkin seeds. Vitamin D3, omega-3s, a probiotic, and digestive enzymes made in under 1 minute. Stop wasting time or worrying about what to eat as your first meal of the day. Start with meal 1. Visit creaturesofhabit.com, creatures spelled with a K, and use code MILE40 for 15% off a one-time purchase or the first subscription order payment. Lesson number 11, the importance of a support system. You can't do this alone. You don't have to. You have to lean on your partner, your family, your friends. Build a support system that can help you navigate through the tough times and the good times. It's a team effort out there. That can't be understated. From day one with both children. In fact, Emma was born last week. We brought her home, and as you may know, infants, when they're that young, you really got to take good care of them, because if they get a fever over 100 degrees, you have to take them to the ER or to the doctor. And it just so happens that Elena is a walking germ, coming back from daycare, playing at the park. She's got a minor fever. She's got a cough. And so she's been staying with my parents while Emma gets situated with Christine, who's been spending time at her mom's house as I've been going back and forth. And so it's important to take advantage of that support system. And I acknowledge that not everybody has that kind of support system. And that's when you really need to lean in on each other. And the best way to lean in on each other is to make sure you have an open line of communication, to share your feelings, to check in. I ask Christine almost every day since the baby's here is, how are you doing not only physically, but how are you doing emotionally? And I think that's a really important takeaway because when it comes down to it, it really is just you and your partner, and you guys have the most to gain and or lose when it comes to your children. Lesson number 12: every child is different. What works for one child may not work for the other. Every child is unique with their own needs, strengths, challenges. And as a parent, it's important to recognize and honor those differences and to adapt your parenting style accordingly. A little too early for me to comment on this, but the interesting thing was that Elena came a month early. She was premature. She was healthy, but premature. And Emma came 2 weeks before her due date. So she was full term. And already we can notice like small differences in how developed Emma is relative to how developed Elena was when she came out. And we're picking up on these differences, and who knows where they're going to lead, but something gives us the feeling that these two kids are going to be completely different from each other, and we're okay with that. Understanding that is really, really important. Lesson number 13: time is the most precious gift. I tell Christine all the time, and I'm going to keep using the word time here, that time is my greatest asset. I cherish my time. I think twice before giving anyone or anything my time. Like I said earlier in this episode, if it doesn't matter, it's not getting my time. And as a result of that, I really focus on being present, making memories, cherishing those moments with my children, because the truth of the matter is you never get that time back. And to that point, I know that some people in certain careers do sometimes hesitate when it comes to taking your parental leave. I'm fortunate enough to work for a big company that offers a very generous parental leave. And if I can give you one piece of advice, take that leave and take it as a bulk. Don't break it up. I took 6 months off when Elena was born. I'm going to take another 6 months now that Emma's here. And looking back on my career, it is the single best decision I've ever made. And it didn't hold me back. It didn't impact my trajectory. And as a result of it, I came back to work after Elena, more ready than I ever had been to succeed. And so time is the most precious gift. Keep that in the back of your mind. If anyone wants to talk to me offline around their hesitations about taking parental leave, reach out to me. I'm here for it. I'm happy to give you advice when it comes to that topic. Lesson number 14: it's okay to ask for help. There's no shame in asking for help, whether it's your partner, friend, professional. It's hard. Parenting, like I said, does not come with an instruction manual, and it's okay to admit that you need support. Asking for help is actually a sign of strength. It's not weakness. It goes back to the whole idea of being vulnerable. And, um, I am constantly reading up and constantly educating myself on best practices when it comes to everything related to parenthood. There is so much that I don't know. And I have no shame in asking parent friends, my own parents, like simple things like I sat down with my dad the other day and I'm like, tell me everything that you know about life insurance. And the truth is, like, I have a financial services background. I can understand all of it, but there is an element to this that is just new, right? Like I never had to worry about a will or, putting together all of these different aspects of caring for someone for the rest of my life. And so I do think that not only are you learning by asking, but you are perhaps strengthening relationships with other people. I mean, the truth of the matter is, and this kind of goes to business, like they always say, like, ask questions of the people that you want to build relationships with, because everybody likes to feel like they're an expert. And when it comes to your career, asking questions can go a long way. right? Going up to that person that you admire and that you want to surround yourself by, and showing a genuine interest in the answers that they have helps you really strengthen that bond because everybody likes to feel like they're the expert. Lesson number 15: model the behavior you want to see. I've said this before on this episode, on this podcast, and interviewing other parents. Kids do as you do, they do not do as you say. If you want them to be kind, respectful, resilient, then you need to model those behaviors. You need to be the person that you want your children to become, and they will follow your lead. Um, you know, I don't care if my kids become athletes or runners or if they choose to do anything else in this world. But it's my hope that they watch me, they watch Christine, they watch the people that we surround them with, and they pick up on the behaviors that mold them into the people that they are, more so than a specific hobby or aspiration. I care more so that they learn the importance of um, being polite, treating others with respect, being kind, being selfless, especially when you're older and you can no longer have to rely on the adults around you. I want them to pick up on those. I want them to learn to be giving, to care for other people. And I also want them to make sure that they are aware that no dream is too big and they can chase down whatever their greatest aspirations are. But unless they see you molding that behavior, they won't know. So, really important to remember: kids do as you do, not as you say. Lesson number 16: cherish the chaos. Look, guys, life with kids is messy. It's loud, it's unpredictable. You have to embrace it. And the messiness is a sign that you're living fully, that your home is filled with life and love. And I'm pretty OCD. I love a clean house. I love being organized. Um, I like everything being in its place. And that could still happen, but there's a time for it, right? When they're awake, embrace it. Your child is not going to know how to eat eating utensils, their first couple of times. It's going to be a mess. They're going to be throwing food, spitting out food. Um, you know, the backseat of my wife's car is a complete disaster. Cheerios everywhere. But that's part of the process. And if you cherish that chaos, if you embrace it, it's going to enrich your life. So keep that in the back of your mind. Lesson number 17: communication is everything. Open, honest communication is the foundation of a strong partnership, and beyond that, a strong family. As your kids get older, talk to them, but more importantly, listen to them, encourage them to express themselves. The more that you communicate, the stronger your bond is going to be. Again, whether that's with your partner or with your children. And so, if communication is something that you perhaps need to work on, I'd urge you address it sooner rather than later, because more often than not, the root of a lot of problems when it comes to parenting or growing your family is poor communication. And so that one is a really, really important one. Lesson number 18: practice gratitude. In the midst of challenges and exhaustion, it's important to practice gratitude. Being grateful for those little things, those small wins that I had spoken about earlier: a quiet moment, a peaceful night's sleep. Um, Christine and I think we always talk about the small moments that make us really, really grateful. I think that parenthood has really opened up my eyes to the fact that I don't need much, and I'm really happy with what I have. I care about their health. I care about their happiness. I care about their well being. And that's it. I care about who they become. And that is said to a certain extent because there's only so much of that I can control. I'm going to model the behaviors. And in the meantime, I'm going to be grateful for the people that they are shaping into every day. Lesson number 19: trust your instincts. There's a lot of advice out there. My whole Instagram feed is filled with advice from qualified or non-qualified people I don't even know about different ways to handle different situations. Some of them educational. Me and my wife are constantly sending memes to each other and reels of different, instructions. But the truth of the matter is, trust your instincts, right? Your instincts are almost always right when it comes to the health and happiness of your children. Nobody else knows them better than you. And so it's really important to keep that in mind because, like I said, if you go back to that example I gave about the febrile seizure that Elena suffered, my instincts allowed me to remain calm in the moment, allowed me to understand that while I don't understand what's happening and it's really scary, there's a next step to this, right? There's the way to handle these kind of emergency situations, and handling those situations requires you to calm yourself first. And so that was instinctual of me, probably as a result of like what I said at the very beginning of this, right? Being able to train yourself to embrace that unpredictable, embrace the uncomfortable. I've put myself in a lot of difficult situations personally, that when I found myself in a very difficult situation with my daughter, I at least knew that the first step was to calm myself in order to take the plan of attack. Lesson number 20. The journey is the reward. This is the last and final lesson. Look, guys, I just started on this journey. I'm only a couple years in. I've got 2 girls now. But one of the things that I'm realizing in that, just like everything else in life, it's not about a destination. It's about the highs, the lows, the laughter, the moments of friction, the lessons along the way, because that's where, like anything else in life, the magic happens. I mean, I can compare it to a marathon all day long. Truth of the matter is, day one, you're out there, you have no idea what you're doing. Like literally no idea. Your body's not ready for it. Your mind's not ready for it. Your soul isn't ready for it. But the more you continue to show up and the more that you continue to evolve and do everything that we had said leading up to, this last lesson, the more equipped you're going to be to just enjoy the ride. Because that really is where the beauty is in all of this, right? I always tell people when it comes to marathons, the joy isn't necessarily in crossing that finish line. That might be a moment of relief, but it's not where the joy comes. The joy comes in the months and months of training leading up to that finish line. And so that's where you learn what you're made of. That's where you learn what you're truly capable of. And that's where you learn where your strengths are and where your areas of improvement are. So that way you can focus on them, lean into those strengths, and build on those areas. Thank you for joining me today for this podcast. I hope these 20 lessons resonate with you, whether you're a parent or not. Fatherhood in 2.5 short years, or 2 years and 3 months, has taught me so much about life, about resilience, about the power of love. It's a journey that challenges you, changes you, makes you better. Like I always say, guys, setbacks are part of the journey, but they don't define you. It's how you rise from them that truly matters. Keep embracing it, keep breaking those barriers, and remember, the comeback is always greater than the setback. Thank you. Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode of the Mile 40 podcast, go ahead, subscribe, leave a review, and share the word. Thank you for being a part of the Mile 40 family. And let's unite in showing the world that comebacks are always greater than setbacks.